Okay, good evening. Today is March 11th, Norfolk Conservation Commission. Welcome, everybody. Please be aware this meeting is audio and videotaped. And if you do have something to say, please come up, use a microphone, and identify yourself and your address. If you're local or if you're a contractor or consultant, please identify whom you're working for. So first off, we have 3 Cedar Road. Is the applicant here? Okay.
You want me to use this?
Please.
All right, so my name's Matt Tavares. I'm representing United Consultants, and I'm here because we were continued last week, and from my understanding, we were continued because we still had some open variances for the Board of Health, so those have now been approved.
Okay.
So,
Did we get validation on that?
Yes, we
yeah,
do.
I have
Okay.
it right here if you want to see it.
No, that's good. She validated it.
Thanks, Janet.
No, I checked with Board of Health
Yep.
because, and that was Jim Susi saying, you know, until they were sure everything, you know, in case
Yep.
there was changes on Board of Health plan, which would change our plan, so just to sit tight.
Okay. So everything is up to what we wanted?
Yep,
Okay.
yep.
So,
I don't know if, did people have a chance, I know it was late, and I'm sorry, I sent today over the attachment A for review, and I think Amy gave people, and that was David, because you sent me an email about adding one, and I emailed you back. That was part of that glitch where, and I also said about 15 Lincoln.
Yeah.
But I did add one, number 8, special condition number 8.
oh, okay.
We were talking about the soils, so
Yep.
just to make sure
They're
those are.
not left on the property during, which Jim said they were
Jim
gonna
had
remove
said, but if it's
everything.
in the paperwork, we're
Yeah.
covered.
Okay. Got it. Okay. You don't have any questions?
No, you know,
You're good?
rock and a hard place for those people, you know, the 2 cesspools, so they've gotta do something, and it's real close, but 8,000 square foot lot, they don't have a lot of room to work, so.
Tight over there. It's real tight.
Yeah, and even, you know, flood elevation and everything, so, you know, they'll make that in there, and,
Exactly. This is just about the only way to do it. So.
yeah.
Any questions from the board?
Hmm.
Do you have anything else you want to say, or?
No, that's pretty much it.
Okay. Then with that, I will accept a motion for NOI 242-625, 3 Cedar Road,
To close the.
to close the hearing first.
Move to close the public hearing for 3 Cedar Road, NOI 240-625.
Second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Now we have to give them,
For conditions.
I'll accept a motion for the notice of intent.
Move to issue an order of conditions for 3 Cedar Road, NOI 240-625.
Second? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Okay, thank
Somebody
you.
can come in tomorrow morning, after 9, if they wanna pick that up, the hard copy to.
Awesome. I'll be here. Yeah.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck on your project.
You guys don't need me to sign anything, right?
No, no.
Awesome.
No,
Thank you.
just see Janet in the morning.
Okay, perfect.
Good night.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Okay, we have a few minutes before our next hearing. Here, you can use mine.
Night. I'm gonna throw a pen, I'll probably hurt somebody.
Thank you.
She doesn't have a pen. Could you please pass this down to Ally? It's that mom and me.
Alex, I wouldn't need that. Okay, for the next couple minutes, why don't we go to correspondence? Anything to say about the Callahan Pond report?
Nope.
Just that they've drawn down and,
Is that all good to go?
Yes, it is.
All good to go.
Okay, thanks.
And I appreciate them doing the report, you know,
Yeah.
it's one way to keep track of what's going on over there, and,
Is
when
there
it
anybody
saves
from
them.
Callahan Pond? Okay. Highland Lake,
No, I haven't heard
anything?
nothing.
Okay.
Mhm.
Let's go to the Mass DOT letter. That's for Route 1A?
1A, and everyone saw a copy of that?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it part of?
Yes.
Okay.
That was basically, I think I got
Yep.
an email from them with a photo, but it looked like they were working where there's a culvert underneath the road, and I had checked with Barry at Public Works Department. He's like, Janet, you might want more information just to make sure we all know what's going on. So they were nice, they met me over there, we kept, but it's basically, you don't even see it because they're so filled with silt and crud and everything, but there's actually openings in the pavement for the water to just run off.
Might
Oh,
wanna use
here
your
we,
microphone.
she gonna do the mic stuff on me.
So in April, they're planning to,
Yeah. And they're just staying in that paved shoulder. They're gonna be cleaning those out, or some of them are really cracked through the years, so just fixing the surface so the water will flow down.
okay,
No messing with that culvert that goes underneath the road there.
okay. Friends of Mirror Lake, are they here?
Yes.
Holy cow!
Oh, that's,
So is Alex.
Yeah.
Oh,
ah,
all right, who wants to speak on behalf of Mirror Lake?
I'll lead it off, but I do not wish to speak.
Okay,
If that's okay with the board.
it is,
I have people for that. I think it's on.
yeah.
My name's Joe Gately. I live at 6 Pine Road in Norfolk. I'm a 36-year, almost 36 years in April, resident of 6 Pine Road. So I've lived on Mirror Lake pretty much half my life. And we're looking at the lake and trying to restore it to what it once was. We have some issues. We've worked for the last 2 years loosely as a board to facilitate funding and so on and so forth from the town of Rentham for treatment to the lake. We're looking to see what the guidelines would be for Norfolk, what we can do on the Norfolk side to try and preserve the lake. We'd also like to see if maybe at some point we could get the two towns to start working together. As long as I've been here, it's been a Rentham, Norfolk thing. And it's just so frustrating when you live there. And I'm kind of like right on the line, right by the town beach. I live across the street from the town beach, which the town of Norfolk owns, but Rentham residents use. It's just, we're here to see what we can do.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to turn it over to, we have two co-chairs. We have a board, an elected board. We also have two co-chairs. I'd like to turn it over to Tom Souza, who is one of our co-chairs, and let him do the rest.
Okay,
Awesome?
A lot of pressure. Hi, Tom Souza. I'm from the Rentham side of the house, and just
what's
wanna
your
show that
address?
a most unbelievable fish that
Oh, yeah.
Alex caught on the lake. So the lake is viable.
Wow.
and
When was that, last year?
That was
2
a
years
couple
ago.
years ago.
2 years
yeah.
ago.
It's one of the big
So yeah, it's one of the bigger ones I've ever seen come out of that lake. It's got to be a good 6 pounds.
what a setup.
I'm just saying, you know.
Alex has recused himself, so he's in trouble anyway.
Here we go.
As he should.
Yes.
Can you just give your address, just for the record?
348 Forest Grove Ave, Rentham, Massachusetts.
Okay.
So I've been on the lake for about 3 years now, but I've fished it. I was a Franklin resident for 23 years and used to fish Mirror and Pearl because the only places you can go. I've loved the lake, but I've also seen it decline. And anybody who's been on the lake as much as Alex does, too, because he's out there like every other day, you can see it clogging up. You know, it's got eutrophication that's going rampant because of all the outflows. It's a spring-fed lake. It was turned over in the early 1900s. I don't know if you know the history of it, but it used to be a farm, but it was always flooding out. So we put a little dam in there and created this waterway. And it is got open land in Norfolk and in Rentham. And the launch, like Joe was saying, is located in the Norfolk side of the house. The town does not maintain it.
Right.
It's all of us maintaining it. We do a yearly cleanup We have fundraisers. We've got a GoFundMe site. We've worked with the town of Rentham. We've gotten money from them for doing weed treatment and studies on our drain water. And we're just looking to bring both organizations together because then we'd have more influence to get this done. And a lot of the high water level, I shouldn't say that, the highest peaks on the lake are on the Norfolk side where all the drainage is coming down on that edge as well. And the way the wind blows, because it's a south-north lake, you get blow up in the north end, which you can't even get into now because of all the muck that's grown. The hard bottom of the lake is around 10, 12 feet, but right now I can walk from one side of I live on the water, I can walk across the lake on top of the muck to the island that's in front of me. If I
Oh, I know
dug
where,
down,
right on the other end.
it'd be 10 feet high, but it's right here, and the whole lake is like that. So getting treatments in there, stopping just the contamination that's going in there via studies and everything else is what we're looking for. And that's what we want both towns to come together to help us in our goals. And we've pretty much met or matched everything on our own until this last year where Rentham stood up and gave us a grant of $23,000.
$23,000 from CPA.
Yeah, so that's weed treatment and that's stormwater research to try to stop the runoffs and try to clean those up to help us win that goal.
Is that study done?
We've had several studies, yeah, and we're in the middle of all that. Well, we're in the middle of the treatment. We've been doing treatments now for 2-3 years.
Right, but you did a study last year,
2 years ago?
2 years ago?
And
2
we've
years?
already been granted the money.
Yeah, but the treatment, yes, it was 2 years ago. Last year we got granted it, but we paid for it the first year on our
Oh,
own.
I see, okay.
So we've been doing it based on those studies. Now they're coming back and continuing the treatment. But that is that's the baseline. There's so many goals that we're looking for.
Yeah. What kind of treatment are you doing now? Chemicals?
Chemical, yeah. So I have to, I don't have my paperwork, but yes, it's through, what's the company called? Solitude, so very well-known organization. So they've come out and done it. We've eradicated a bunch of, Alex, that,
Yeah, what's that vine? That
oh, it's as big as my arm in these fields, and they just start floating around on the lake after they're dead. It's amazing, as big as my arm. But there's a whole environment of that. But going back 25 years, I would be able to bring my boat up into the back areas in the south end of the lake down, closest to like the tavern, that end, with no problem. Now, you get 3-4 inches there. It's mucked up. It needs help. It's dying. The studies that were done that we were able to research back and present to the town of Rentham, we would be more than happy to share with you all. The lake is going to be gone in 10 years. It's going to be just a pile of muck.
What are you suggesting for cleanup or to revigorate the?
So first thing is try to stem the flow of eutrophication. I have to keep back and look at my scientist for that one.
How do you do that?
Through the stormwater studies, through filtration, looking at different ways of keeping chemicals out of the lake. That's one of the first things.
From the homeowners?
From homeowners and from the streets. So that whole sheer street side all the way down into Rentham, it all drains down.
Everything
They
goes.
say everything goes downhill, right? So
There is a big pipe at that far end in that corner, right? A drainage pipe that dumps right into the lake.
Yes.
There's several.
Yeah.
There's several of those.
Rentham?
Any,
Is that
Yes.
Rentham?
any drain that is on Mirror Lake Ave,
Well,
You need a microphone.
There you go, Joe. Come on.
sorry.
there's
I mean,
another one.
I've seen one that's quite high up,
Should be
you
a
can't
little
miss it.
lower.
There is several, and any drain that's on Mirror Lake Ave drains directly into the lake or into the river that runs over to Stony Brook, which again, Stony Brook leads into the Charles River. So it's important that we take care of this stuff, not only from our own standpoint, but from ecology in general.
in-town recreation and open land. You don't want that to be turned into a pit that can't be used.
Well, my curiosity I would have is, I've been on that lake with my bass boat when I did have it, and I've got depth finders on it, and it's all 4 feet deep that I could find.
Yep,
Except for
correct.
one area that's about 7,
Yeah.
where the
Two.
big, not catfish, those suckers are, or whatever they are.
Right.
How are you looking to remove the mud itself?
Okay. Very good question. So
First, identify yourself.
Michael Carr from 51 Mirror Lake in Norfolk, and I've been there about 8 years now. And to Alan's point, what now is 4 foot, when I moved there 8 years ago, was about 6 or 7 feet. And there's been studies in Massachusetts about all the various lakes, and as a conservation commission, I can't think of anything that's more important than keeping these lakes vibrant and the environmental aspect of what's going on here. Joe mentioned this is all feeding into the Charles River watershed in Stony Brook, and my kids have been going to Stony Brook for 25 years and looking at the turtles and everything. We're feeding right into that, and for a variety of reasons, many of reasons we can't even talk about tonight. It's dying, and we're just trying to do whatever we can to stem the tide of that, keep this fresh. I hate to say it, but Alex and I live right next to the beach there, and there's so many Norfolk residents that come here in the summertime and just want to hang out there, and we want them there. And we were very fortunate about 6-8 months ago to get some money from Rentham, because they have 75% of it. But as in with water, 75% is, what does that mean if you don't have the other 25, right?
Access.
Right. So we've been trying really hard, and we do an annual cleanup in the neighborhood. We all are very vigilant if we see our neighbors doing something that we think is inappropriate, and we have spent a lot of money on some studies with a very Tom mentioned our scientist friend, and she lives right here on the lake, with a lake company called Solitude. But just as everybody reads every day in the newspapers, lakes in Massachusetts and New England, for that matter, are under attack. You could say global warming. You could say invasive species based on people bringing boats from other lakes to this lake, or even fishing lines from Lake Winnipesaukee to Mirror Lake. It does some damage, and we have a wonderful resource there. It can be a beautiful time, but we just want to get on the agenda to be able to talk about what we can do to just maintain it. And I think I speak for everybody here. We're so happy that you guys are even talking to us tonight, because it's a big deal. And it's
We
not
like our 25%.
yeah, our 25%, to me is 100%.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm a Norfolk resident, and as is Joe, and Joe has been there a lot longer than I have. Wait a minute. Wait, okay, Jamie's here. That's great. And but we really try to be as vigilant as we can. I mean, we see people on the lake, and we try to police it ourselves, but we need a little help. We just need a little help.
Janet, have you seen any of these reports?
No.
Could we get a couple?
Could you share that with the 25%? Just so we see the reports. No.
Oh my God, yeah, of course we
Because
can. We can share. We just
But we've
wanted
had
to get on the
solid-
agenda tonight to know what we have to do to present it
We've
to you.
had Solitude, and the town's coughed up money for them to go evaluate some of the,
Right.
lesser ponds in the town.
Yeah, they
so
seem to be the only game in town, but yes.
A lot of them emerge, but it would be, it gives people a boilerplate for what they're considering issues or options for
Of
how
course.
to go forward.
We'd
so.
be more than willing to share, and we could probably do it as early as tomorrow. We would love to be able to share everything, and we're just so happy that you guys would want to see us tonight. Go ahead, Joe, sorry.
I just want to clarify, Mike keeps saying Norfolk owns 25% of the lake.
It's probably more than that.
It's the important 25%.
Yeah.
That's where the boat landing is. That's where the town beach is. Public access is mainly on the Norfolk side.
But it is a shared recreational spot.
No question,
And
no question.
Correct.
following it over the years before I was on the commission even, yeah, it's interesting that there's the Rentham side and the Norfolk side, and Rentham does some stuff. And so I think if you can get those reports to Janet first, let her digest it, and we can talk about it, and then maybe get a hold of the Rentham Conservation Agent, and
Yes.
maybe we can get something discussed before the next meeting, and then try to come up with some kind of a outline or a plan maybe that the conservation can support on both sides.
That's exactly what we're looking for
Isn't,
tonight.
well,
We're looking
let me just check with
guidance.
Jan.
We're just looking for guidance,
Yeah.
a little help in our mission.
Yeah.
This is the first time that we've approached anyone about this on the Norfolk side. We do get a tremendous amount of help from Norfolk DPW. They help us in our cleanup every year. Unfortunately, the two people that I know have both since retired, so I have to go talk to the new people, and hopefully everything remains the same.
We need
but,
some connections.
yeah, we work.
Well, I'm one of them.
There you go, yeah.
Good to know.
Hey, I'll give you the hot
Good to
fishing
know.
spots.
I already know those two.
We do like we said, we did an annual cleanup. Norfolk has always taken the debris, the brush, all the junk that we pull out of there. And the Rentham department, unfortunately, their attitude is not what we had hoped. And they will not allow us to bring any of the trash or brush or anything over there. They clearly shut us down. And the statement that was made by one of the very short-sighted people over there was, what would I do if I allowed everybody to clean up their neighborhood? And, that's just a brain-dead statement. That's a brain-dead statement, and we're very happy that the town of Norfolk allows us to do that. And we're doing it again this year, the first weekend in May. And if you're at the DPW, what's your name? What is
You've
your
met
name?
me, Joe. Come on. I'm the water foreman.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah,
I
know
will,
you
I
now.
can talk to the proper people, and I'm sure we'll continue to take.
You know,
Excellent.
my other situation down
Yes.
there with the water level, it's crazy.
Um,
We're looking to fix all this.
Yeah, and I just want to address one question, because I know we want to close this out, can't keep it going forever. But you asked what long-term plans are. So Rentham, in the last, when we got our $23,000 for support of funds, the town also approved purchase of a weed harvester for Lake Pearl and another weed type harvester for Lake Archer. So those are town properties, and I kind of addressed it at that meeting, saying, oh, so the town's buying them, not the lake, so they can be used. So there's a potential for using those as well, because they are town property. But, you know, we're looking at other kinds of situations and solutions long-term, which includes some kinds of dredging to get the water flow a little better in there.
But you have vegetation problems along with.
Yes, we got it all. We
Yeah,
got it
you've
all.
got everything.
We got it all.
Okay.
Like I said, the hard pan is 10, 12 feet deep, and it's 4 or 5 feet of muck, and it's a thriving body of water. We had people coming in say they would if they could shut the water off at one point, they would dredge it for free for the fill, because it's such valuable fill. But then you're shutting down the lake for 2 years, and it's a fish kill-off, and there's a lot of issues with that. So there's other ways to solve this, and that's what we're looking for, is solutions like you're saying. So we're going to drive our GoFundMe site, looking for your support, because maybe we can get something very similar going in a manual effort, because we're willing to do anything.
Well, I think the first thing is if we can get the reports, let Janet digest them.
Yep, done.
And then we can try to plan something out and then get a hold of Rentham and
Yeah.
sit down with them as
Yeah.
together.
This is a good start.
Yeah, thank you
because-
very much.
It's a- it's a-
Appreciate the response.
We thank you for your audience, and we're very humbled by the fact that we could be here tonight.
And, I mean, the other thing is, you mentioned CPC on the Rentham side. Norfolk CPC has paid for cleanup of other lakes in town, so, of Norfolk. So,
You know the process, yeah.
we can, go to them and say, hey, we need some funds to help on this.
Perfect.
And so, but I think this is a good start. I appreciate you coming in. Does anybody on the board have a?
I think we have another comment from over.
Yes, Donna.
Just before we
there's-
stop talking about this.
Donna Jones, Norfolk resident, not near any of these lakes. I've been involved with Mass Audubon, Stony Brook, so I'm very familiar with taking care of nature. I have been asking people connected with Town Hall for a couple of years, what do we do to maintain our lakes? Some people, like Janet, have helped me. You need to identify what does the town actually own. How do the residents know where they can go recreate? What is private property? We've had some ball fields that volunteers tried to maintain, but they got so bad, they qualified to come to CPC to restore My understanding is that you have to let the condition of something get bad and CPC can restore it. So I still wonder, what do we do to maintain things? If a CPC application was filled out for a 3-year plan to clean up a body of water,
Yeah.
what are we going to do to keep it clean?
I can talk with Cindy to come up with the right, proper wording for the funds that we could get in the fall meeting. And just like we did for Highland Lake, was CPC funds. Yeah, it has to be the correct wording so that it flies through the state regulators. But I think it's something, the money's there, so water is important to us, waterways are important to us, wetlands are important to us. I think, we can start getting a little bit proactive on it, and see if we can, that's just my opinion as chairman. Yeah, I'd like to just open it up to the, do you have anything else to say, Donna?
I did actually watch your Rentham town meeting completely, so I knew all the CPC articles. And it's just that restoring thing. It's like keeping it clean. How do we going to do that?
Donna, there are new regulations. I can't speak for them on stormwater. And the regulations, I believe, are starting to come in where you cannot just dump stormwater from the streets and into the receiving ponds and lakes. I don't know what the regs are because that's not my forte, but I know there are new regulations coming out for that, so.
That's where our scientists.
Yeah.
She maps them.
Do you live on the lake, or are you just, oh, okay.
I'm at Sarah Pierce at 290 Forest Grove Ave.
Do you work for Solitude, or you're just?
I work for Park Corporation, so I'm an environmental consultant. But I've assisted the group, and I'm on the board looking at stormwater sampling and seeing if there's any best management practices that we can implement at these outfalls, because currently they're just discharging directly to the lake. There's no velocity dissipators, there's no swirl separators, it's going directly. And I'm sure that's the big part of the sediment problem as well, is all the sediment from the streets is just discharging directly to the lake.
Okay.
Yeah, because they've been looking at putting in recharge stations instead of a direct fill, and then riprap off of those, and allow for cleaning of those areas. But you have to look at where each of those are, because you need a certain amount of land area in order to put in the recharge station, and that's sometimes ends up under a road, and it sometimes ends up having to pipe it, and it makes it really difficult.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
So, the other thing is, anyone talk to the Army Corps of Engineers about dredging?
Yes.
And that's just a thought, I don't know. I know that's one of the things that they do.
You take a microphone, please.
But.
Go ahead, John. Go ahead, no, let John talk.
So, John Dennekamp, 115 Walnut Road in Rentham. We've been on the lake for 22 years, and we've been part of this whole process for almost that long. And there was a chance 20 years ago that the Army Corps may have taken something like this under. It never happened. But as Tom or Mike said earlier, there is a group that would do this for free, and free would mean that we would have to pay all the cost for core sampling, and that's $50,000 to do all the core samples, which we may or may not recoup. So we can't really do that. So the Army Corps would have been a great thing. I don't know if there's any way to open that back up with them. But
Okay.
it had been discussed about 20 years ago.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to send them from your board to the regional office of exactly what's going on, and, just kind of something short that, your hard pan's 12 feet deep.
Could I ask you for your guidance on that? If you're familiar with it? I'll do it. I just need your guidance on who.
I
I'm
would
not
just
familiar with the process.
Google the Army Corps of Engineers, and they'll have a regional office.
Okay.
Unfortunately, being on the board, I can't kind of get involved in the process till it comes in front of us. But again, I know for certain that they do, on a yearly basis, dredge a lot of waterways off of ocean inlets. Now granted, there's a lot of money involved in keeping small yacht clubs open off these inlets and small waterways.
Or import, port, business port.
Yes.
Correct. So, those are done annually. Keep the moorings open, keep the waterways open so boats can get in and out at high tide. But I don't see why we'd have to drain the entire lake to dredge it. They may do something as simple to start as opening up some waterways, because I'm not sure you could even get in a harvester if you've only got 2 feet of water.
No, there's plenty of room.
There's
Yeah.
some talk to that, and I think that requires a little bit more study.
Yeah.
But the initial feedback is we could probably do that, but to your point.
It's just gonna get
Okay.
worse, because they
Homework, yeah.
grow so quickly.
Yep.
All the debris is
Yeah.
creating more organic matter and
It'll be-
shrinking.
It'll be higher
Yeah.
tomorrow than it is today.
Yeah.
I think at this point, I agree that it's taking a more proactive approach instead of waiting for something awful to happen is better. But I think that it also.
Thank you.
But I also think at this point, we just need to see a little bit more of the information
Data.
of
So,
what has
yeah,
happened at this point, and then we can assess maybe
Thank you, Alexandra.
helping
Yep.
to recommend some future steps, or if you could even propose
Yep.
maybe some different options of what you're hoping to happen.
Yes.
Just so we can better consider.
This is exactly why we're here, and it's
Okay.
exactly what we're looking for. And I don't want to put this in a negative way, but we didn't know how you were going to react to this whole thing. Are you on board with us, or was this going to be a fight? Like I said, for the 36 years that I've been here, Rentham and Norfolk never see eye to eye on anything. What you have here is a group of Rentham and Norfolk residents who've gotten together, said enough is enough. Let's cut the BS and let's actually get something done here.
Okay. Well, get the studies to Janet, and let's
Thank
take
you
a
very
look
much.
at it. And
Thank
we
you all
appreciate-
for your
We
time.
appreciate you coming in front of us, and we'll see what we can do to save the lake.
Good job, guys.
Thank you.
Just, we meet the second Wednesday of every month, so don't disappear, you know, and stay in touch, please. Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay, we'll get back to the agenda. 15 Lincoln Road, please.
I know. Yeah,
I didn't realize the time.
yeah,
Alex, thank you.
Fisher people.
See you guys soon.
Good night, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brian Yurgation, professional engineer from BSC Group, and I'm representing NextGrid in the application for an order of conditions at 15 Lincoln Road. Also with me tonight is Daniel Serber, seated right in front of me. He's the Vice President of Land Development, and he's here to answer any questions that you have as well. So we were last before you a couple months ago, and at that point in time, we did not have it was decided by you that a peer review was going to be conducted. So since that time, Beta has conducted a peer review. We got the comments. We responded February 14th, sent back the comments. Have not heard anything since then. I did ask Janet and town planner as well, Richard, if they could, send us any comments as soon as they get them so we can address them. But hearing nothing, I'm assuming that our responses were satisfactory to Beta. There were 8 comments. We addressed them all. So at this point, I'm here if you have any outstanding questions. We have received approval both from the Planning Board and the Zoning Board of Appeals. So this is our last stop, and we are hopeful that we can close the public hearing tonight and get a favorable vote.
Okay, I'd like to turn it over to Marta from Beta, who did the peer review.
Hi, I'm Marty Nova with the Beta Group. We did review the application, and we did provide comments, and we did look at the responses. I think one of the biggest charge that we have is to make sure that when the commission makes a decision, it's defensible. So at this point, I have to say that the current project does not meet the performance standards under the wetland regulations specifically for riverfront, and it also doesn't meet the stormwater regulations and standards. So at this point, the commission really can't approve the project as is There's a lot to do relative to the riverfront performance standards. They haven't defined really where the degraded areas are. They haven't provided an alternatives analysis that meets the regulations to the commission that demonstrates that they have no alternatives to their current design. And, you know, they have some work to do on their stormwater management design. Beta provided comments in December, late December, and we haven't received a response to those comments. Mainly, you know, test pit data. There's, you know, some standard questions that were asked. We haven't got a response back. I think the biggest thing, though, that a lot of our comments, both stormwater and under the wetland regulations, were mirrored by DEP in their file number comments. They were pretty substantial. They also asked for an alternatives analysis. They asked for a defining area of the degraded area. They noted that the quantifications to riverfront wasn't accurate. It was inconsistent in the application. They also talked about the stormwater design. They needed test pits, needed some peak volume runoff information. There's just a lot of information that still needs to be provided. I think that this site is a good site for solar, and I think that they can get there. They just need to do a little work to provide the commission with the information you need in order to approve the project. I have to say, at this point, if the commission approved the project, there's a highly likelihood that they would intervene on it. DEP would. And they would supersede your approval. And that would be, you know, there'd be a lot of time going by, and then the applicant would be right back to where they are today. They would have to address the same comments that we have, the same comments that DEP has right now. So I think that they need to provide the commission some more information and actually maybe redesign their project a little bit. I don't think that when they do their alternatives analysis, it's going to show that they have no alternatives to their current design. So I think they need to do that.
Is there a letter and a date that your responses were that you can reference that they should be addressing?
Yes, the stormwater letter actually was to the planning board. And in that letter, although the planning board appears to have approved the project, it talks about the DEP stormwater regulations, which fall under the wetland regulations that they need to comply with. So that was dated December 24th, 2019.
And you have that information?
Yeah, we did actually. We responded to all their comments. I sat down with Phil Paredes from Beta and Richard McCarthy. We went through all of their comments. We subsequently addressed them. We revised our design, and we met, you know, their satisfaction. There is no comments at all in the recent Beta only Beta peer review of the notice of intent. There were no questions regarding stormwater management. No outstanding issues there. I'm a bit confused why.
Well, I'm
now.
confused as well because I talked to Phil today, and he said that the December 24th letter was not responded to. So I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, they've all been responded to. It's a matter of record at this point. So you know, I can provide it, or we can just go look it up. You know, Janet, in your office there. That's to me is coming out of left field. The other thing is
wait a minute. You don't have it?
Well, that's planning board. So maybe
I don't. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, we would need to get you a copy of that, please.
And my understanding is planning board, the stormwater review is done under the planning board purview, and then that information is provided to the commission.
Yeah, we haven't gotten anything.
When did they meet planning board? Was this?
When did they?
We've closed the public hearing with the planning board. I don't have the date now. A couple months ago.
Like January or so?
Yes, approximately. Yeah, I'd say January.
February.
We also got through the ZBA in February. I was on the phone when the Beta and Brian were going through every comment of this. This is a long time ago. So I'm really confused of what's going on. And
Yeah,
then
there's a
also,
disconnection. I think we'll need to get a copy of your response and have Janet look at it and
I've also
in
seen
Beta.
nothing from the DEP except I've talked to them about our cleanup proposal. We're spending over $700,000 cleaning this site up from all kinds of contaminants, and they seem thrilled that there's no more chance of soil runoff. And they haven't said one negative comment, and I haven't seen a letter from DEP with any of the comments that I'm hearing about. So either there's definitely a failure of communication between the town, Beta, and us, because I'm kind of dumbfounded right now.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I know that the December 24th stormwater letter actually had gone through one set of review, and they had addressed many of the original comments. So, but there were still some comments they needed to address. So, I mean, but I think that,
There was that.
Right. Let her finish her thought.
so I'm looking at the DEP file number, and it talks about infiltration in a contaminated area and in fill. That is something that, under the current standards and handbook, is not advisable. So I think that, number one, the commission should ask for results of any test pits that were done in the location of the subsurface infiltration system. And the applicant should address DEP's comments when they issue the file number. I don't think it's a lot to ask for them to do that. I mean, they may have, Phil Paradis may have been totally satisfied with the current design. He didn't tell me that today, so I don't know what to say to that. And then DEP also has the same comments, but what I'm saying is that DEP has these comments, and if the current plan is approved, there's a highly likelihood that they'll intervene and supersede the commission. And again, you don't want that. You want it working out on the local level. So I think they just need to do a little bit more work to get to that point.
Have you guys been in touch with DEP?
We're going to have 2 permits with DEP for the cleanup. This is a brownfield site. It's registered with the state. It's been a constant thorn in the side of the town and the DEP for a long time now. They have our plans. We have open stuff with an LSP group, which is different, that's doing the cleanup work aside from this stormwater. So we are removing, trucking out all the topsoil, and we have to dispose of it out of state. We found catamines in it and stuff like that. So I feel like the plans that Beta are working on are not taking, are you talking about the test pits to find contaminants in the soil, or just the
No,
filtration
the
rate?
subsurface infiltration system.
'Cause we've already done test pits, right? Like a long time ago.
Yes, we did. But I mean, I just want to back up. We haven't seen any comments from DEP at all when they issued the file number. And then the other question I have is, have you reviewed our February 14th response letter? Because you mentioned that we're not meeting the performance standards for a riverfront area, yet we went in, about a page and a half of a response, which you just kind of didn't even address at all.
It doesn't, the river.
You're just saying that it doesn't meet the standards, but
Okay,
you're
talk
not
to us.
describing how.
Yeah.
She needs to describe, at least put it in writing, how it's not meeting the standards, because we provided a response. If you're saying that we're not meeting the Mass DEP stormwater management standards, which again is not in your letter, then you need to put it in writing where we're not meeting those standards, because we are meeting them.
We can do that.
Okay.
I mean, I didn't want to spend the applicant's money doing that, but we certainly can.
Should you two have a sidebar and talk about what is needed so that they can look at the different things that have been sent to them from DEP and Beta comments, and then what their responses have been, and then you can give us a review.
Yes,
I
certainly.
mean, instead of, because we'll be here all night going over every item.
Right.
Now, there was other things you
Yes,
thought.
there was another, there was one, we had questioned the wetland boundary on the site, and their plans did revise the wetland boundary. However, their response letter didn't indicate that, but we did look at the site tonight before we came down here, and I didn't see the new flags out there.
No, there, it was done on the plan. It wasn't, we didn't go back out to the field and literally move the flags. no.
Okay, all right, so it's hard to confirm new flags if they're not out there. I mean, I was seeing hydric soil, 20, 30 feet up from the current flags in the field, so I don't know where the new flags that are on the plan should be in the field. So that's one thing.
We revised exactly as you said. I think it was 10 or 20 feet, whatever it was. We did it exactly as you had said, even though there wasn't proper justification in my minds for where that was coming from, in the initial letter. Just said move the flags, didn't say it was looked at by a professional wetland scientist.
But now she's
Did it
done core
nonetheless.
samples, and I went out with her because I wanted to view the site, and it's all wet. And she was 20 feet or so away from the original flags.
Again, as she stated, we modified the plan
Okay.
as Beta suggested. So that should not be an issue.
Okay. So,
Well, I mean, I think, again, we can talk about this offline.
yeah. Okay, I would like to continue this hearing, and I don't want to say next month, till next month, at the moment, but I think you two need to talk and then get back to us and give us a timetable. Janet?
If I may though, and if I could just share, this is something I had done, it's okay, I don't hurt in front of the camera. But this is something way back when it first went to planning board. These were, because they send the notice to other, boards, comments, questions, you speak up. So I I made extra copies, but this is just, DEP's mentioning about how there's still old, not closed order conditions that need to be addressed before, you move forward with this project. Some of it just might, and so that's just me with what I could find, and I keep telling people, you're welcome to come in and go through these massive files that we have. A lot of this might just be paperwork shuffles, but just that there's no concerns with those, it's like before you go forward with this project, have the other things been addressed? So,
I mean, just to prep everybody on what's going on. So we're developing this site in solar panels through the Massachusetts SMART program. This project is going to take around $700,000 to clean up. They also owe tons of money in back taxes. We need to get the project certified as a brownfield so we can get the adder from the SMART program to develop this site and afford to clean it up. If we can't get approval to put it into the SMART system, then we can't get the funding to clean up the site at all. So
is
it's
there
kind
a
of
time limit? I don't know how that works.
Well, you lose money every block, so it's a declining block system. So right now it's in block 3, and if time goes on, it goes to block 4, and eventually, because of this site being very small for the most part for what we do, and the massive amount of money it's going to take to clean it up, all these delays are, I mean, we've been back and forth now since September, I think, or maybe even longer, since we first submitted the project, and then just to hear that there's all these comments that I've never heard about that aren't being addressed, or that I have heard have been addressed, and now they're saying, oh, they never saw them, and it's just
Okay.
really disconcerting. Yeah.
Frustration,
Yeah.
but just because.
Yeah, because we're really trying to do something very good for the town here.
Just so you
and
know,
it-
so we
yeah.
understand. You could let. We just, okay, so we
Yeah.
understand that for sure, your frustration, and we recognize that this is a good project for the town, and we appreciate that for the town, but just where there are pending issues just before us, I think you just have to understand why we can't just move forward until those issues are.
So we can continue it to next month, and have you two both parties get together and see if we can get this settled, so then in April, if possible, we can proceed. So I'll accept a motion to continue the 15 Lincoln Road until April 8th at 7 o'clock.
To continue the hearing for 15 Lincoln Road, NOI 240-0624 to our April 8th meeting at 7 o'clock.
Second?
Second.
8 o'clock
Any
or
other
7?
comments?
Did he say 7?
7.
7, sorry.
Any other comments before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, it passes. Yeah, let's see if we can get these cleared up, and please. If you need a meeting room, there's one upstairs.
She also has to talk to us about,
Oh, okay. What's that?
she also has to talk to us about.
Yeah,
secret.
yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
she
right,
just
she's not
realized that.
running away, okay. Oh, 7 o'clock.
Okay. Will 360, thank you for coming in. 360 Main Street, do we have a DP number on that yet?
No.
Not yet.
Okay. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Katie Unright, and I'm a civil engineer with Howard Stein Hudson, here tonight on behalf of Camger for their new project at 360 Main Street in Norfolk. It's right next to their existing facility at 364, so right off the page here is their existing facility at Camger. They've been working with the neighbor for quite some time now and has been able to purchase a piece of property from the neighbor of a little bit more than 6 acres on that property. And what we're looking to do is redevelop that property as a new facility for Camger. The facility is 100 by 200, so it's about 20,000 square feet. It's 1 story. It's located almost 150 feet off of Main Road, 150 feet from the residential abutter here, and then just more than 200 feet from Mill River, which is back in this part of the site. I believe you saw it just some time ago for an ANRAD filing, so the wetland line has been set previously prior to this project. We started planning board, and last night was our second meeting with planning board. And we had, I know we just got through all the conversations about beta review, but we've gone through 2 beta reviews, and have a more recent letter from them with some final remaining items for planning board to consider. The project proposes to put essentially the building, like I said, just outside the 200-foot outer riparian. The parking and all the impervious surface is essentially based to the east of that, so that brings it as far away from the river and the resource area as possible. In front of the planning board, we sought a waiver to actually reduce the amount of parking so that we weren't having to pave the entire parking lot, where Camger's not going to need an entire 45 spaces for this facility or the expansion. We've actually asked to waive 16 spaces, and those are these spaces shown here in green, and to actually not build them, to land bank them into such a time that they may need them or the building inspector determines that we need additional parking. So rather than pave the world, essentially, when we're not going to need it, we've asked the planning board for a waiver, and they seemed pretty happy with that suggestion last evening. By doing so, we reduce a little bit of the pavement on site. You can see we've also asked them for a waiver to put our loading dock in the front of the building. That also helps us reduce pavement, because what we can do is we're actually utilizing existing pavement on the Camger site to access this loading dock. And we're not having to create a large expanse of about 90 feet of pavement to accommodate a large tractor trailer truck turning radius if we were to put this behind the building. The planning board also seemed pretty happy with that. They actually weren't sure why we needed a waiver because they didn't really consider it parking. But technically, we believe, and the planner assured us that we should just get that, just to be safe. So this is our loading area here, which works out nicely, because again, those trucks can come, they can actually pull around into the Camger lot and back up. So we're able to limit the amount of pavement there. You can see the pavement goes all the way to the back here. Camger would like to leave the opportunity to look at in the future, which certainly would have to come back to this commission and the planning board for a potential expansion of about 5,000 square feet. So we've left an area behind the building just in case of that in the future, and not put the equipment right up against the building to the rear. So some of our equipment is here, again, further away from the resource area on the eastern side of the building. The rest of our equipment is here. This is the 200-foot outer riparian zone here. This is our water tank back here, and our water system will be within this area and loops into the outer riparian a little bit back in this area. This is our gas tanks here, our propane, our pump that goes with our water system here, and our dumpsters all the way at the back here. So we've tried to keep them, again, as far away from the resource. Can't really get much further up the hill. This is a 3-to-1 slope all the way to our property line. So we're pretty significantly cutting on this side to push this as far away from the resource area as possible, to get that 3-to-1 slope all the way up to the property line in the top of the hill in this location. Our septic system, we've done pretty significant testing in this area, and our septic system we're looking at putting in this landscape area in front of the building here. We've done soil tests here and essentially throughout the site. I was out there last summer doing test pits. In the evolution of the project, some of the locations of the drainage systems have moved around a little bit. So one of the comments from Beta, and we will be getting out there in the next couple of weeks, just to confirm some areas of testing in some of these basins. We have testing, like I said, pretty much everywhere. The only place I saw water table was as close to Main Street as basically we got, which is way out here, which would be consistent with the pond across the street as far as where we found water table. Everywhere else we did not find water table. Sandy loam at the front, sand at the back. So we have good infiltration rates. In the evolution of the drainage system now has been designed to capture the stormwater in deep sump-hooded catch basins. In the front here where we have the loading dock, Beta had asked that we take the deep sump-hooded catch basins and route that through an oil grit separator before entering the forebay of the bioretention area here. So we've added that additional feature before we get to the bioretention area. The rest of the site goes to the rear, where again we go through deep sump-hooded catch basins to a forebay to another bioretention area. These are nice because they're at the surface, they're very, very shallow, so all of the water is really kind of kept in the material that's essentially underground in both of these areas. So we've been able to reduce flow off-site, both to the Mill River, to the Camger site, and to the main road. Beta also asked that we separate out some of the roof runoff, so the 2-year storm event has been separated out into this underground infiltration area, so it bypasses essentially all the TSS removal where we have clean roof water running off the roof. So we've brought in this new small system here which captures straight clean roof runoff, infiltrates it into the ground, and then would overflow into the bioretention system here at the back. There are some existing homes, barns, structures that exist out here on the site today, which would all be removed as part of this project. So what we're doing is trying to limit as much as possible work within the riverfront area. We're not doing anything within the 100 that's not already cleared, and between the 100 and the 200, what we're looking to do is only drainage, and only drainage insofar as we're doing bioretention areas in both those places. Honestly, the alternative would really be to get those further out of there, would be to put those systems underground. So, which would certainly add significant cost to the project, and wouldn't provide the level of treatment that these 2 bioretention areas would on this site. So with that, I believe you have, these are the new plans that were submitted to you. I do have the green cards with me tonight, so let me grab those for you, Amy.
Janet, do you have questions or comments? Okay. Oh, we'll wait till she gives the green cards.
Sorry about that. I should have grabbed these out before.
Thank you for remembering them.
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, Janet, why don't you use your microphone? Please.
Smile, Ann. First of all, we don't have a DEP file number.
Correct.
Okay, good, all right. Just, and, it's here, if you don't mind, I even made a copy, so you'll have those, so you have time to do your homework for the next meeting. Take that with you,
Oh,
that's
sure.
okay. But the map block lot, and double check any of this, please, but this was that whole big lot that the horse farm owned, which was split. Okay, so now this is a new lot. Okay, and also too, on your notice of intent, you had the wrong map block lot. So this is information as far as the map block lot. I got that from assessors. Just thank you, double check. Never trust anyone. So riverfront on this site is, call it almost 100,000, okay? But this is now a new lot that was just created, so it doesn't fall under the grandfather anymore, okay? So you're allowed 10%,
Or drainage.
okay, but right now, you're proposing almost 25%. So I I don't know if you can do anything. I know you have to remove buildings, whatever else, but just to kind of maybe go over and just give an explanation, because, and let's wait and see what DEP says too, but that was my first, was like, oh my God, I don't know if there's anything that you can do, make them longer, skinnier, or show, at least give a reason that you can't do this kind of stuff, just so it doesn't look awful. I would also appreciate, please, one plan, you're not quite there, that just kind of shows the whole lot. You're not showing the whole lot, per se. It's almost like if they moved it down a little bit, but I always like, and you learn by mistake, so I'd prefer if there was one of the pages just kind of showed the whole lot, just
We'll
for,
be providing, we're going to add a locus plan, only because to bring this up to another scale, it makes the details really small. But we're going to be adding a locus plan to add additional abutters to the lot, so that will show the entire improvements on a separate sheet.
right, and to show, I was having a hard time, if there was, and you'll see my notes, but the idea of one sheet was showing the resource areas and the buffer zones. I kept trying to flip and what's this line, and I finally found some references, just so it's
Sure.
clear. I would appreciate that. Oh, right, yeah, because also, I'm not sure, I don't want to say this, I'm not sure if you overpaid filing fees, so, I know, well, I go through this
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, I got, on stormwater here, it says page 2 of 8, it's marked as new development, not redevelopment.
Right, it wouldn't be considered redevelopment because we have more impervious and more in the post-development.
Okay. Oh, right, and then down here too, there was a whole bunch for the stormwater checklist. Same thing, if you can just go through, because standard 5, 6, 7, 8, there was nothing was checked off. So just on my copy, so if you could
Okay.
just kind of go through that. And see, is the planning board reviewing stormwater information for this filing?
They are.
Good, because I hate doing the numbers, so.
I've
but
had 2
just-
letters from Beta so far, so I can
And
send those
if you could please,
forward.
just email, send one over, because sometimes there's a little glitch with sharing.
Sure.
So we don't have a number anyway, so it's not like we can close, so if you can kind of get this stuff together, email, drop it off, whatever, I appreciate it, just to keep going forward. This has been going on for a long time, love to see it go forward. You just, like everybody else, make sure they do all this. But I have one question, because I know it came up in the talks about the water. Where's the water coming? You're doing a well, or?
Well, correct.
Does it show where the well roughly is gonna
Right, the
be?
well, I believe, is roughly in this area here, but I can show it. It's on the utility plan, which Amy walked away, but it's in the site plan, and
Oh,
essentially
super.
it's back in that location. But
No, good. Not that but I remember there was concerns with fire department or where this stuff was coming from, so just to make sure everything gets taken care of, but that would be great, and hopefully, and also, I don't know if you go up to the DEP file site to check for the number?
I did today before I came.
okay.
So it wasn't issued yet. We actually tried tried to follow the check to make sure that they received it, because they hadn't issued a number yet, so we're gonna be
And
working on
also,
that,
you know,
make sure
if
they
you're
got
not
it.
seeing anything, call them up there too, because sometimes they tend to move things to the top of the pile, so just to make sure it moves along, or if they have any concerns, we can address them all.
Sure.
So just stay in touch so we can get it taken care of.
Yep,
I appreciate
absolutely.
it, thank you.
Anything else?
Nope, that wasn't too
Anything,
bad.
Patty, from the board at this point?
One thing with the water coming off the east off the slope through the parking lot, how is that water being captured? To
The water-
prevent it,
Right, so it's coming into the parking lot, and it's flowing through the parking lot and being captured by the deep sun-putted catch
okay,
basin.
so it's not just, you've accounted for not just the parking lot, you've also accounted for the sheeting coming from,
Right, the
that
entire
east-
watershed
okay,
that goes to those catch basins
All
are
right.
included. Mhm.
okay.
I'm not familiar with the bioretention area. What is that taking on? All the drainage or just overflow?
It's taking on all the drainage.
And-
So
Okay. go ahead.
essentially what it does is it's basically a hole that's filled with different layers of media and different types of basically combinations of media, and then there's basically a mulch and then plants that are put within the top. So the water goes in there and is able to be filtered out by the media and absorbed by the plant roots. It's nice because it takes care of, it offers 90% TSS removal, first of all, within the train. It also takes care of things like phosphorus, nitrogen, and metals too, so it
Okay,
adds.
so my biggest question here would be, in 5 to 10 years, what are these gonna look like? Is there any maintenance done to these? They mowed or?
There is maintenance. They are, essentially, they're looked at, you know, for trash and stuff, but the plants, I mean, the plants you want to keep healthy, so, because they need to do their job. So essentially, they're going to be green, lush, planted areas, very shallow areas, located in both of these areas of the property, but there's an entire operation and maintenance manual that goes with it also. Certainly, the water getting in there isn't going to have any, anything really that's going to need to, that you're going to physically see to settle out, because it's going through deep sun-putted catch basins, and if those are taken care of, the sump's going to capture all of that material, or the hood. And then it's going into the sediment forebay, which has a more rigorous maintenance schedule, and then it's going into the bioretention area. So that's seeing things that you're not going to notice necessarily that are soluble.
So basically, it's filtered out. Most of the solids are,
Gone before it gets
Okay.
there, right.
Anybody else up here? Anybody from the audience have any questions regarding this site and application? Yes, sir. Yeah, please take a microphone.
She mentions that,
Name and address, please.
my name is Norman Mulaney, I'm at 89 Midway Street, Norfolk.
Oh,
Detention basins are nice and green and lush. That is not always the case. They have to be maintained, I say this because I work for the town of Foxborough Planning Board. They have to be maintained sometimes twice a year and cut, because just seeds blowing in from the wind will cause plantings to grow in there. Trees will grow in there over time. It has to be maintained constantly. It's not going to be green and lush all the time, unless you're in there once a week mowing the grass.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, I'll accept a motion to continue 360 Main Street to the 8th of April at 7:10 PM.
Street to the 8th of April at
10. Second?
second?
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we'll see you in April.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for coming in front of us. Okay, Meeting House Road, solar array.
sorry.
You've got the floor.
Okay. For the record, Nathan Collins, principal with CLC Design, here on behalf of NextGrid, who is proposing a ground-mounted solar array and at Meeting House Road. This is a continuation. The last meeting we had was on February 12th. At that time, we did not have a DEP file number. I actually called DEP today, and I believe she emailed a file number to Amy this afternoon.
It's on the website.
Okay, so they must have just posted it.
Okay.
So really the only modification since the last time we had met, as I had noted, we had received conditional approval from the planning board. One of those conditions was the approval of a landscaping plan, specifically vegetation along the eastern sideline.
Give me a minute. I'm not
Yep.
Get this rotated around.
Okay. That's the old plan. So a couple other things. We did file with Natural Heritage. Again, since our last meeting, we received a letter from them acknowledging that there's no adverse impact and no take to the habitat. So they're on board with the project as well. DEP, I haven't received any comments from them, but I spoke to the review agent specifically today. She actually questioned their jurisdiction on this particular wetland. We had gone back and forth, detention basin versus wetland. So again, haven't seen the comments, but based on brief discussions with her, I don't anticipate any major issues as it relates to what we're proposing. Looking for it. And I'll give a quick overview too to people who may not have been at the last presentation.
Appreciate it.
Did you look at that, Janet, the detention pond? Because we talked about that the last time.
Yeah.
Whether it was a
And I was-
detention pond from the actual Meeting House Road original construction?
Yeah, which kind of ticks me off
Yeah.
because it's DEPs that mark it. Yeah, I've been out there
The human altered
Twice.
swamp.
Yeah.
twice now. Yeah. I'm sorry, can I? while
Yes,
we're-
yeah,
okay,
please do.
we'll get the fill. Now, I'm sorry, did you go through planning board? Are you done with planning board?
Planning board, yeah, planning board has been approved. Our next, we're going to be filing this week for ZBA just to get the special permit. But in terms of stormwater site layout, we went back and forth again with Beta Group.
Is that the new one?
Okay, so this is the latest plan. So nothing changed in terms of the layout or the limits of disturbance. Drainage didn't change since the last time we met. But what we did was, again, at the request of the planning board, we are proposing some additional evergreen screening along this fence line to mitigate any potential visual impacts to abutters. The condition as it reads, this layout is approved as is, but there's going to be a meeting post-construction to review and determine whether or not additional plantings. But that's in one of the orders or conditions of approval in the planning board document. Again, just to give a brief overview, this is an area east of the existing development. This little rectangle here represents the existing pump house for their sewer system. We're proposing a gravel drive coming off of the existing paved driveway that will provide access for future access to the site. It results in the clearing of just under an acre, about I think it's a little over 40,000 square feet to build this solar array. The entire footprint will be enclosed with a 6-foot-high black vinyl coated chain link fence. That fence will be 6 inches off grade, so critters can get in and out of the area. We are proposing a detention pond. The proposed drainage for this particular site, we're maintaining as much of the existing grade as possible, but there is some grading associated with this gravel drive, and we're proposing a vegetated swale along the eastern edge of this road with a series of riprap to slow down the flow and treat some of the runoff coming off of that gravel. Similarly, we're adding a swale on the eastern edge to collect runoff due to the change in surface type, forested area versus I think what we called meadow, working with Beta Group. That will also run to a vegetated swale with a series of check dams prior to entering a proposed detention pond. The detention pond itself has a depth of about 2 feet, and the 100-year flood elevation is approximately 1 feet and 4 inches. So even in a 100-year flood event, it's very little amount of water. It's designed to infiltrate. We've kept 4-foot separation from estimated high groundwater. In the event that there was a storm exceeding 100-year, there is an emergency overflow where, again, on the eastern edge, that is, the elevation is approximately a foot above the 100-year flood elevation within that pond. Again, based on the stormwater report that's been submitted, Planning Board approved it. They didn't have any more questions or conditions associated with stormwater. All the work proposed, you can see this buffer to, again, this low depression here was ultimately a detention pond that was built for the original development. Due to lack of maintenance records and discussions with Janet, it was deemed a wetland resource area. We are maintaining a 50-foot separation from that into this no disturb area. So all of the work is just within the 100-foot buffer area, between 100-foot and 50-foot, I should say. And there's really no impervious area we're adding. There is a little bit of gravel driveway within that area, but overall we're not adding impervious area. We're not increasing any flows off-site based on pre versus post development. With that, I'll open it up to the commission. Or
Okay, thank you. Janet?
Do we need any revised sheets or plans or anything? So what planning board or whoever, we all have the same?
no, again, this was the only plan that was revised based on the final plan submitted to the planning board. And I submitted these to Rich last week. He conditionally approved them. And I provided a copy to Amy as well.
Okay.
So this was the only revised plan. It's just a site plan.
Okay.
I believe it's C-1.
Good. Just so is that something that should be included in our?
The final plan, approved plan set, yeah.
Okay.
And again, really, the only change was the addition of these 19 evergreens.
It just, I appreciate people going to different boards, so you have a problem, this gets changed, whatever, but
Understood.
it's, you know, when I go and.
You have
or
copies of
whoever,
everything that's been
but
approved.
it's like this is what we approved, and which is different, you know, so to try to avoid those problems, I want to say, and I, just for the record, because it was DEP site who first started about this being an altered wetland, okay? So for them to make comments like that is just so much fun. But, no, I appreciate what you guys gone through. I know it was aggravating. You know, I was out there. I also went back. The 26th, I think I was back there, because I was having problems. No, it would be the upper right-hand side of that whole, little area.
Yep.
With, you know, the water stained leaves over there. So I went back with the tape measure, measured, just for my comfort zone, with tying it with your plan. And one area is 13 feet, the other one's 35 feet from where the flags are, but it's still within that 0 to 50 do not disturb.
Right.
So regardless of what it is, isn't, or whatever, it's being protected. You guys can, as far as I'm concerned, go ahead with your project, and hopefully everybody's happy. And I appreciate, I know this was interesting. We learn as we go along. So with getting that DEP number, if I would appreciate, I don't have an order of conditions because that's been sitting at DEP buried in somebody's foot locker or
The
something.
woman I spoke to today, she literally looked at it for the first time today.
So.
But she
we-
thankfully was able to at least get us a file number, so.
Right, so, I mean, I would appreciate if we could just continue to the next meeting so we can see if there's any comments. I will have the order of conditions ready. If everybody has approved the project, I will have it ready for the next meeting for them to vote and sign.
I'll
I
speak
don't
to-
have
Do you
anything
need us
ready.
present for that, or?
No.
Okay, all right.
No, and just, double check, if DEP's like, oh my God, this is horrible, then we need to tweak.
That Jana will contact
Sure,
you.
no, I mean,
Super.
based on, like I said, based on the preliminary discussions I had with Judy Schmitz, I think
Yeah.
is the reviewing agent, she questioned whether or not she had any jurisdiction, so, but was certainly aware that you guys could put condition, it fell under your jurisdiction, and if you wanted to put conditions on, you were able to, so.
Right, no, I mean, with how, regardless of what it is, I appreciate the way you people handled this and giving it that 50, and I think you even have a fence over there or something,
We do,
so-
yes, yeah, there's a fence, like I said, around the entire perimeter.
Right, so regardless of what it is called, not called, it's there, it's gonna be taken care of regardless, so, that's fine with me, so that's just it, just to look at DEP, did they have any major concerns? If not, I would have that paperwork ready. Okay, thank
That's
you, yeah, that's it.
Anybody from the board? Any comments?
Feel like I'm
Anybody from the audience? Any of others or residents up there? Okay, then I will accept a motion to continue Meeting House Road solar array till April 8th at 7:20? Sure.
Continue the hearing for Meeting House Road Solar Array for our April 8th meeting at 7:20.
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. We'll review it next month, and, yeah, with the DP numbers, and
Thank you.
then, yeah, the next day, you can pick up the paperwork if you need.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, 144 Seekonk Street. Marta, you're back up. This is, the ZBA has asked us for feedback on 144 Seekonk Street.
Hi,
So,
Marty Nova with Beta Group again. The ZBA met late January, early February. I was at the meeting for this particular project on 144 Seekonk. And Beta reviewed the plan for the ZBA to advise them on the impacts or potential impacts the project would have on the local wetlands bylaw and regulations performance standards. So this particular, I don't know if people are familiar with the plans, but there's a narrow wetland system that runs through the site. It begins almost.
you have that, Matt?
Great.
Amy?
So
Continue. Go ahead.
yeah, sure. So it's a narrow wetland system that that runs through the site. There's a road crossing at one point at the southeast corner. It's narrow. So the site plan basically shows a significant amount of clearing, pretty close to the wetland boundary, and significant earth moving around. They're going to regrade the whole site, reshape it, so it's going to look quite different. So
Isn't there one,
well, yeah. So here's the wetland system here. Now, your commission at one point in an ANRAD process reviewed the BVW boundary, and I believe it was a superseding order of resource area delineation that actually confirmed the boundary of the BVW here, and they also looked at an isolated wetland here, and although they can't confirm it in their ORAD process, they did look at it and confirm that it was accurate in the field. And that IVW would be something that would be jurisdictional under 401 water quality program. So anyway, so Beta was on site twice. The second time was in December of 2019, and when we were out there, we observed a stream flowing down the center of the wetland system that wasn't identified during the ANRAD process, and it wasn't confirmed by the superseding order of resource area delineation. And that's because they didn't ask for that to be confirmed. So what we saw was in the field in December 2019 was the stream starting approximately here and flowing through this IVW and continuing on through the BVW and then out to approximately here. And there's a big rock fill slope here, and it kind of disappeared into the rock fill slope. But basically, our findings after looking at the design and the site was that the project would have likely impacts to the resource area, especially your bylaw resource area buffer zone, and you protect that as a resource area. So they're doing quite a bit of work in your buffer zone there. So what we recommended to the ZBA was to require that the applicant provide a buffer zone evaluation to provide them information about the buffer zone and its value. And your regulations talk about there's 4 performance standards for the buffer zone. So we basically said, you got to take a look at it. You have to make sure that it's not going to have an adverse impact on the wildlife habitat that the wetland's providing. What wildlife habitat does the wetlands provide? There's actually a vernal pool, potential vernal pool that we observed in this area here. So we talked about that as well. And we also recommended that the applicant provide like a water budget analysis. Like if you're going to clear cut pretty much most of the buffer zone, you're going to regrade, you're going to redirect runoff to basins. What's the impact to the vernal pool, potential vernal pool, and what's going to happen to the stream? You know, is it going to dry up? You know, you need to look at that. So the ZBA, through their legal counsel, questioned whether or not the commission, do you normally ask the applicants to do these types of analysis of the buffer zone in your normal course of proceedings? So they're asking for input from the commission on that, and whether or not, if they ask them to provide this information, is that something that you would normally ask? And of course, that's site by site, and so that's really.
They provided it for the previous applicant on Meeting House Lane because he went from forested to grass, and there's a considerable difference in the amount of runoff water from going from a forested area to a grassed area. So in their water treatment, stormwater treatment plan, that was all addressed in there. So yes, it is something that we would request.
Which one was Meeting?
You concur with that?
Which one was Meeting House? I'm sorry.
The one we just talked about.
Meeting House Lane.
Oh.
The
Where
solar
they-
array.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I
Last
think just
meeting.
from a legal perspective, because this is a 40B project, the ZBA is going to be stepping into the shoes of the commission for purposes of potentially reviewing under the bylaw.
Yes.
So I think it's important that we give them our feedback in terms of if we were to look at this, what would we do? So I think it might be worthwhile to discuss whether we want to vote to maybe place a memo or something in our file saying that, if we were to review this, we would adopt Beta's recommendations.
And send it to the ZBA.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'll make sure that you get those. It's January 28th, 2019. There's actually 2 letters. One is. Okay, so yeah, perfect.
2019.
They're actually 2020. It says 2019, but
Oh,
weren't they in January?
Yes.
Yeah, they say.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
So, Janet, would you concur with that? That we have asked for that in the past?
Yeah.
So it isn't anything unusual
Correct.
for our normal business considerations?
Yeah, even now, Because we don't see, lots of times what we're dealing with is single-family house, and they've got a yard, and they need to do something, so the area's already disturbed. Normally, if something hasn't been disturbed, and you've got forested, wooded, whatever, you're trying to at least 0 to 50 do not disturb, you
Yeah.
know. Can you squeeze them for more? Oh, good. Because we have that 100-foot. We've even had it with other subdivisions where, and I wasn't here for that, but I don't know if it was confirmed or potential vernal pool or whatever, and it was a subdivision. It was up the airport, Tailwind Circle.
Yeah.
But, you know, they had to do the study for where are the creatures coming to, yeah, and it ended up being vernal pool, where the creatures coming from to this pool, which kind of helped them because they were all coming from this area, so they could go ahead and use this area for their project, you know, trying to,
Okay.
so it's not unusual.
I guess one of my concerns would be, after the grading, how is that, is it any possible effect on any of the neighbors in the grading? If that.
Same thing too, is it gonna dry up this area? You know, if this
Is
is.
a detriment to the vernal pool area.
Or the
or
stream.
The
Is-
wetland area.
How much is groundwater, how much is surface water? Now, if you've changed everything, will there be no more water? Who knows, you know, it's tough. I mean, this hasn't, we had it for the resource area delineation, but we haven't had it come in as a filing for this project per se to go out and.
But I think, to your question, I think that's a ZBA thing, is the runoff of the water. Is that correct, Amy? The wastewater, you're saying, Jim?
Well, just a,
Well,
the-
it's all ZBA really.
Yeah.
Where it's, I mean, normally I think that would be planning board.
I think
but
what ZBA is looking for is for us to make, essentially endorse what Beta is
On
proposing.
this exact
Yeah, so-
specific.
Yeah, I'd make a motion if I could.
You, I
Um,
was gonna have you
all
word
right.
it.
So I'd make a motion to authorize Janet on behalf of the commission to place a memo in the file stating that the commission endorses with approval Beta's proposal for how the ZBA should review and apply the bylaw to this project, and allowing Janet to include any other issues she thinks appropriate for the ZBA to include in their review.
Is that all that, Amy?
Close.
Good.
Hopefully, yeah.
You okay with that kind of wording, you think? Marta?
Yeah.
I'll accept a second.
Second.
Before we, yeah, talk about it and change it. But, yeah, I think that you're correct. That's why the applicant isn't in front of us. They're going through the ZBA on everything, and.
ZBA has the call of whether or not to apply the bylaw in the
Yeah.
first instance, so I think it would help them to know, what our concerns are, because normally it would be us applying, but because it's a 40B, it falls on them, so they want our input.
Yeah. Any comments from the board? Comments from the audience? Mr. Clark?
Larry Clark, Seccong Street. At the previous ZBA meeting, Marta mentioned that there was a potential of a vernal pool in that area and recommended that maybe it should be looked at this spring. And I don't know if that's something that would come from this board or the ZBA as to whether the ZBA would require, the Concom would require that maybe that was looked at and confirmed whether it is or is not a vernal pool.
I think that's something the ZBA would,
That's actually one of my recommendations in the letter.
Okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
so it's, yeah.
Yeah, we fully endorse that. And we hope that if Beta is allowed, ZBA is allowed on the site, that the Concom could accompany the party so that some of the commissioners could go up and take a look at it because we've talked about it a lot over the past year, but other than myself, I don't think anybody, and Janet, I don't think anybody else has been up there. So, all right then. Any
more
other-
question?
Yes,
Yeah, one more
Mrs.
question.
Clark.
Karen Clark, Seekonk Street. It was mentioned that a stream was seen from the top section there that runs down into where the vernal pool is a possibility. Did the stream that was observed, I believe you said in December, did that stream interfere with the proposed roadway that we see on the plan?
That stream flows through the wetland and then will be flowing through a culvert, a proposed culvert under the road. So
Right, but initially you had pointed to the top
yes,
section there.
sorry,
where you-
yes. So, yeah, there is a segment of the intermittent stream that actually starts flowing approximately here, looks like above the road. That stream would not be jurisdictional under the state regulations. Under the bylaw, it would be, based on your definition.
Yeah.
Under the wetland bylaws.
Yes.
So potentially, if it is something that is decided by the ZBA to enforce, that road would not be allowed to continue through that area.
They could have a bridge or something.
We put a culvert in underneath the road.
Don't they cross a wetland once already down below?
That crossing would be maybe a little bit of BVW, but mainly stream
At the
down
bottom?
below, at the bottom.
So it wouldn't be two crossings of the wetland?
It would be two crossings, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Is that permitted in our bylaw? I don't know.
They also, and I know, and we'll have to see how this comes out as resources, what size of impact. It used to be, just you'd hear about one crossing, but people can do two crossings. Nothing seems 100% sometimes. And also a calculation for how much square feet of area people are impacting under state versus local, So until you get that in front of you with numbers and measurements.
I just didn't know how our bylaw read specifically. Thank you.
Because even state normally, for us, and it's us being the little people, but, we can allow up to 5,000 square feet of alteration. If somebody wants to do something more, we have to deny it. They gotta go to the state. We can't do those kind of things, so until somebody actually comes up with how wide, how much, to come up with those numbers, you can talk about it forever, but we won't know anything,
And I guess just one last question. What is the buffer zone when it's a vernal pool versus a wetland? Is it different?
Again, it's if you're talking state or local, you've got different, under the state, if it's not certified, and even if it is certified, there is no buffer per se if it's not in another resource area, so,
Do we have 100 or 200 under the bylaw, do you know?
I haven't read that up in a while.
Yeah, I'd have to look at the regs.
Yeah, we'd have to peek.
Yeah. It might be 100 feet from the depression is the vernal pool boundary, and then beyond that is the buffer to it, so it'd be 200 feet.
Okay.
I believe that's the case, but I'd have to confirm.
And is there a particular month that needs to be looked at to verify? Is that something that has to wait, or is it
March,
something?
April,
Okay, just like perk tests.
when the salamanders start to crawl. We heard a wood frog today
The peepers are out.
when we were out
Yep,
at Lincoln Street, so.
yep, yeah, it's starting. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments from the audience, the board? So we have a motion on the floor,
Second.
and that's been seconded. Amy, do you want to
Second.
repeat it?
I don't know if I got all of the words. See, Alex made a motion to authorize Janet on behalf of the commission to place a letter in the file that the commission endorses how the ZBA should apply the bylaw, and to authorize,
Endorses Beta's recommendation for,
endorses Beta's recommendation,
reviewing the project under the bylaw.
or reviewing the project under the bylaw. And that Janet may include, and
Her
that's
own
her-
recommendations.
Okay. There you go.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes. Thank you.
5-0.
Thank you for staying.
No problem.
Okay, let's go to 89 Medway Street. And the flooding issues that are occurring out there. Yeah.
Oh, wait, oh, good. The best for last, sir.
Yes, I came before the, come before the board asking for their help.
Could you just say your name and address one more time?
My name is Norman Mulaney, 89 Midway Street, Norfolk. Okay? I have flooding in my property that has occurred over the last year. And Janet wrote a letter to the people who own the land at the corner of Miller and Myrtle Street. They have a duck pool there, and there's a dam on the far end of it. Okay? In the last year, I've noticed on the opposite side of Myrtle Street that they have flooding at the lower end of what used to be Mrs. Picconi's property. Okay? That's where Crestbrook comes and goes under the road to that pond. Right. Now, Janet sent me a letter today, I received it today, stating that the owners of the property deny having raised the dam, which causes the flooding. Now, that pond on their side of the road is right up to the top of the dam.
Okay, remember to use the microphone.
Yeah, they're suggesting that perhaps beavers on the opposite side of the road have caused the problem. Beavers building a dam don't cause flooding downstream, they cause the flooding upstream. I see no sign of beavers up there, but the chairman here came on and viewed the site. Since your last visit, the flooding has intensified on my property. I took some measurements, which I have marked on the map here. My property goes back, excuse me, I have to put my reading glasses on.
Oh, yes. Off on Miller Street. Yes, I did see it.
I've noticed a lot close to the street,
Yeah.
right here, and I don't know, I haven't looked down in any of the other
Yeah.
areas, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I noticed that today.
Yeah, it's close to the street.
Yeah.
That was even me.
Go ahead.
My property goes back 53 feet from the bound of the road to the middle of the brook. It was documented by the surveyors when they did the work back in 1976. I have been living on this property now for almost 42 years, and I've never had any flooding back there. All of a sudden, it happens. I tried to determine whether or not there were any beavers building on the brook, and I can't find any evidence of that. What I'm seeing is that the pool that they're using for the fowl, the geese and the ducks, has risen to the top of the banks on both sides of the road. So, although they've denied changing the elevation of the spillway at the other side of their property, to me it's obvious that something's been done there to cause this problem. It just didn't pop up after 41 years. Problem. Now, some research. Here's, right now, I have a plan here, shows the bound at the road. I have a bound right here at the tree line, And the distance between those two is 258 feet. Actually, it's 23 feet to the bound, another 35 feet to where the flooding is ending right now. The last time you were out there, the flooding was back here. It's moving forward. My concern, I have two concerns here. Now we have a large pool of water that's going to contribute to mosquitoes, typically whatever is in the air. Okay. It's not only affecting me, it's affecting the neighbors. They have the same problem. The other problem is this flooding of that vegetated tree area is going to kill the trees over time. Now, the normal tree, a normal full-grown tree, consumes about 100 gallons of water a day. So if you kill all those trees, you're going to have even more flooding over time. Something needs to be done, and I don't know whether the planning board here or the conservation board has the authority to do it. I have a copy of the wetlands regulations for the state, and it implies that nothing can be done to a stream that causes downstream flooding. Now, the reverse has to be true also. You can't do something to a stream that's going to cause flooding upstream, although it doesn't say it. I don't know whether that's ever been tried in court and litigated or not.
Janet?
No, if I may, one of those light bulbs, but, and I'm not blowing you off, please don't think I am.
Yeah.
But when he was saying, because we can't go per se trump and we can't trespass on people's property.
I understand that, and neither can I, that's why I'm
No,
here.
but mosquito control, if you call mosquito control, because they'll come out, and they've done it, to people's properties, go check, and they have the
Call who?
authority. Mosquito,
Mosquito control.
Norfolk County Mosquito Control, and if you're not online or whatever, you can call the office.
They fly over the area every year, and
But they actually will come out, check areas to see if there's a problem.
Okay.
They have the authority to open up channels, which we can't do,
Yeah.
you know? So that's food for thought, and we have their name, number, their contact people, so if you can't find it,
can I
please.
get that from you?
Sure, oh,
Stop by the office tomorrow.
yeah, super.
Now, would the culvert going under Myrtle Street be clogged? That could be part of it too.
No. The water level.
Oh, I saw the
I'm a
water.
civil engineer.
Yeah.
The water level is the same on both sides of the road.
Yeah,
So it's not a
That
clog.
pond there, Dave, is that the homeowner's?
yes,
He owns that?
yes.
So, okay, so we can't, we don't have
We
no
can't, we
jurisdiction.
no jurisdiction on it.
Sounds like a private nuisance type
Right.
dispute.
But if we start with mosquito control, because somewhere between you and there might be a problem, and if it's something that they can take care of, that would be awesome.
And they can look at the pond maybe and,
Well,
We can only go with what we see or what people tell us, so, I mean, but
and
at
I
least,
understand that, but when I last spoke with you, the board was going to investigate it. That's why I'm here.
yeah.
Did you investigate it, and what did you find?
and I
From
did,
these people is not investigating. They're just telling you what they want you to hear.
right, but we can't go out onto their property
I
and
understand that, and I
our
can't either.
stuff says
That's why
alter, fill, dredge, the resource
I
areas.
should take to get
No,
some
so we're,
action.
it's frustrating. Let's try to slowly get through this and hopefully maybe mosquito control maybe can get out there and see
That would be
what's
the
going on.
avenue to maybe find out.
Yeah, they did it over for that horse farm, whatever that is, on Warren Drive. Problems, you know, so they're a good resource and can go to places and do things that we have no jurisdiction over. So if you come by, we'll,
Okay, good.
And all we could do is ask the people, and we have to take their word for it. You know, I was on Myrtle today and Miller Street, and yeah, the water is on the right, the same as
yeah.
the pond. So it'd be nice if the pond was lowered, but
Well, and if their property use
The
is impacting
homeowner.
your property, you may want to consult an
Yeah.
attorney about
He's got a bridge, he's got a bridge.
Well, I'm trying to avoid
I
litigation.
know, I know
Ducks.
that.
You know. Litigation can drag on for years.
Yeah.
I'm an attorney, I know that.
Yeah.
But even a consulting attorney, they might be able to help you
So
with.
now the
Yeah.
question is,
Sometimes a letter goes a
going
long way.
bigger on his
Yeah,
own private
exactly. So it
property,
might
but
not
it
even
affects other.
Well, when I was on the planning board here in Norfolk at one time.
Okay, one conversation.
Jim Foley, who was a local farmer on Park Street at the time, had some farmland across from where Cronin's are, okay, next to the pond. And he was complaining that the development of the Sweetland Farms property caused flooding on his property. Well, it wasn't. Most of the water coming from through Sweetland Farm comes from the railroad bed, okay, goes under Main Street and continues on into Crestbrook, okay. At that time, the county would go in and clean up the brooks if there was a problem, which is what we advised him to do. I don't think he ever did it. But now you're saying that mosquito control has that, no?
Yeah, it's tough, because, yeah, we can't go on private property and we can't adjust the dam on our own. But there's a lot of beavers I know
Well,
downstream,
there's-
because on Miller Street, we were just talking, there's dams being built right near the Charles,
And they
The
get,
lodge right off the.
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
Big Lodge.
yeah,
Big one.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you get the information on the mosquito control, keep in touch with us, and we'll try to work with you and,
Well, if I'm not mistaken, the Corps of Engineers also have data on that brook and the elevations on it. They're located, they were in Waltham, I understand they're at Hanscom now. So that's another possibility.
yeah.
They do have the trees marked on Miller Street, the Corps of Engineers. They
Oh,
own
yeah.
Well,
all
they've,
that-
they've
all that
taken,
wetlands.
they've
They-
taken a lot of property in that area for wetlands, floodplain,
That might be another avenue you can
Flood
check
protection,
also.
yeah.
flood protection.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want are you leaving that for us, sir, his paper?
Oh, here,
I don't,
your plan.
just got rid of my sheet.
That was Janet's.
You can have that one too if you want.
Okay, conservation signs. So that is,
Dun,
I
dun,
had one
dun.
printed up,
Can everyone see that? Isn't that?
Beautiful.
and I enlarged it from what we had originally talked about, because I think the bigger the better. And it's reflective and whatever.
No, don't.
Huh?
No,
Vanna White, yeah.
Stop. Is this acceptable? This color, size?
Most definitely.
Perfect.
wording?
Perfecto.
Okay, so we can get more to actually put these up somewhere in town.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Good
yeah,
luck.
DPW will put them up for us. The other thing, okay. The other thing will be for Campbell Forest, which that was gonna be the first place that goes into, is I've got the DPW to dump chips there because the walkway, the trail is all undermined and whatever. So the Lions of Norfolk have taken it on as a service project. And so one Saturday, they're gonna attack it with equipment and a couple volunteers, and we'll get we'll probably have about 50, 60 yards dumped over there. We'll fill up the parking lot. Because if we've got a
There's some history behind it.
tractor there, we're gonna use it.
Town of Rentham.
Yeah, 'cause you got a long distance
going
out
to
there.
back in the
Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gonna take some work to get them all the way out,
sewer,
Yeah.
around the loop.
Burl Lake
Yeah,
Hatcher,
there's only,
part of-
well, there's,
No.
once you
Really?
break around, there's two ways, but
Right.
we only have,
It's-
if I can get
They approved the
another
project at Town
tractor
Hall.
out there at the same time, that
Yeah,
might help.
Dave, correct me if
He's
I'm wrong,
been
but
through
you
the
could
city
bring the
goes
tractor in
to
from
run a
Springs.
pipeline to
No, I mean from
Has to all go
North Street
Right.
is, yeah, when you go straight, and then when you take a right to go up, to start taking the loop.
Yep.
So you could go like that, But the Boy Scout, Sam is putting chips on from Alice Street.
I did notice, I've been out there, I did notice they built some of the bridges, I don't think they.
Yeah, they, I haven't been out there yet.
It's a Title V.
Some have been built.
Oh, okay. DPW said, oh, we can't bring equipment out there, it's too wet. And I said, I don't want you out there.
Oh, on that side, definitely.
Yeah.
No.
So, okay. Do we have minutes to go over? Okay. So, in April, we need to go over the executive minutes and approve those for release. And then, if you would get the first 3 minutes of this year, January, February, March now.
Yeah, actually, January is done and February is almost done.
Okay.
But I haven't distributed them. I'm like so close, but today was just a runaway day.
Okay. But, yeah, if you could get that done. And then, I won't be here in April, depending. Yeah, I won't tell you the warm area I'm going to, so that it has no virus.
All right.
So,
Dave,
we're
I
good.
have a question. I don't know
Yes,
if
sir.
I missed it, but whatever happened to the signs for the walking paths? Did that ever, weren't we getting signs?
To go, arrows?
Arrows and stuff?
Yeah,
Has that been done?
those will come up now.
They will, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to get the trail covered first.
Yep, okay.
And then once we take care of Campbell Forest, then we'll look at Lynn Forest.
Okay, so basically, we're working Campbell Forest, and then we might move on to it. All right.
Yeah, move on to another one. Now, Janet, the last thing I do want to get back to Donna's comment about ponds, which ones are, or bodies of water that are towns, private, conservation, whatever. Do you have a list of those? Or do you have
As far as what?
who owns what and
Ponds or-
controls of,
For
yeah,
ponds or,
ponds, lakes?
yes, I've been going through that. That's that whole, and that's been part of the, adjusting coding, for if it's conservation property or if it's town, some other, so been going through, looking up deeds, and giving back up to assessor's office so they can correct it. Yes, this is conservation land, fix it, and it takes, it's frustrating in this digital age, but stuff that just got fixed won't show up to 2021. It's the lag, but just trying to
But at
straighten it
least,
all
as
out.
long as we know,
Yep. So same with, before we put out signs, to make sure it is conservation property, if we don't want any legal problems or whatever, but that's been looking it up as far
Yeah.
as ponds.
so we're trying to straighten that all out, Donna. And the other part, I don't know if you've been at all the meetings, but we want to identify all of the conservation land and trails with signs on the street to say Campbell Forest, and so people driving down the road can say, oh, take a left or a right into the driveway and parking lot and see it and stuff. And then also from the, like going up Marshall Street to go to Lynn Forest and stuff. And then, as we get proactive, I think in this area is, putting in parking lots where they need to be and stuff like that, so.
But also, as far as people in town, and I'm a homeowner too, and sort of like, all right, I pay taxes, where can I go? Where's town property? Where can I walk? Where can I fish and catch a huge bass? But to have these signs up, but also hopefully to make people aware, but even the young coming up, Boy Scouts for Eagle projects, with, do we have trails? Are there trails? Do we need trails? And can they do their GPS or whatever to get this so it's
Mark 'em,
user-friendly
yeah.
for everybody?
Bring it up to the 2020 age of technology.
Late
But yeah,
19.
so it'd be nice to get them done, or a few of them at a time, so that they can be put in the different books about trails in this area of the
So
country.
we're gonna go ahead, you're gonna go ahead
Yeah.
and order signs?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So you're gonna take care of that? And
Yeah.
You'll let us know?
Yeah.
Right, and then Public Works is gonna do the posts? and-
Yeah.
Super.
And then I'll develop the other signs,
Super.
the brown signs
Yeah.
pointing into where the trails are.
Okay.
And then we can talk about what's arrows and color of arrows and
Good.
stuff, of what's
Wasn't gonna ask.
easy, moderate, difficult. So, anything else anybody wants to bring up tonight?
I
Thank
think
you
you're
for your
ready.
patience.
Go done.
I
So,
will,
is he the only one, though, for the next meeting that we're aware of that
and
won't be
Fred
here?
should be back.
Yes.
All in favor of,
Move to
Did we
adjourn.
do
move to
everything?
adjourn? Second?
Second.
Oh, he made the
I
motion.
did the motion. Oh, you can
All in
second
favor,
that.
say aye.
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 Who seconded?
Me.
Yeah.
Ah.
Al and Al.